Welcome to A Course in Miracles in Practice. We're stepping into quite a significant phase in the workbook with Lesson 301, and you'll probably notice the tone, maybe the structure of these daily exercises is shifting a bit.
Yes, that shift is pretty evident right away. Many of these upcoming lessons, they read almost entirely as these direct, sort of sustained internal communications. You'll see the bulk of the text in italics.
Right, the italics.
And that script is basically the mind speaking directly to God. It's a dedicated moment, really, of prayer and joining. Any regular type, if it's there at all, often serves as just a brief setup for that inner work.
And this change, this different pace and tone, it's really meant to settle you deeper into the practice itself. We absolutely invite you to share how this new feel lands for you as you move through the workbook. You can always contact us, keep the conversation going by emailing us at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org.
And you can also find us on social media. We're on TikTok at the World Harmony Project.
Okay, so today's lesson, it's a profound statement, isn't it, about the source of all our suffering. It contains one of the most direct causal links, I think, in the entire course. Let's read Lesson 301. And God himself shall wipe away all tears. Father, unless I judge, I cannot weep. Nor can I suffer pain or feel I am abandoned or unneeded in the world. This is my home because I judge it not, and therefore is it only what you will.
Let me today behold it uncondemned. Through happy eyes forgiveness has released from all distortion. Let me see your world instead of mine, and all the tears I shed will be forgotten, for their source is gone. Father, I will not judge your world today.
God's world is happy. Those who look on it can only add their joy to it and bless it as a cause of further joy in them. We wept because we did not understand, but we have learned the world we saw was false, and we will look upon God's world today.
That very first statement, Father, unless I judge, I cannot weep. That leaves the entire mechanism of the ego's thought system bare. It's not abstract at all. It feels almost like a clinical diagnosis. It asserts that suffering is, in a way, an elective function of the mind. It directly links our tears, our sorrow, our pain, not to things happening out there, but to an internal decision, a decision to condemn.
It completely strips the perceived drama out of the event, doesn't it? We're so trained, I think, to assign causation externally. I am crying because I lost my job, or because this relationship ended, or maybe because I feel physically unwell.
Right.
The Course just redirects that gaze entirely inward. It says the grief is actually a function of the internal condemnation of whatever happened. The actual source of the pain is in the thought system itself.
That's it. And if we apply this maybe to something like creative work, you can feel tremendous frustration when a project stalls, or maybe a piece of writing doesn't meet your expectations.
Oh, absolutely. The pain you experience there isn't really the difficulty of the work itself. It's that instantaneous judgment that kicks in. I'm failing, or I'm not good enough, or this effort was wasted. That judgment system, fueled by the ego's need to be right about our lack, that's the engine of the pain. It almost demands weeping to validate that initial error, that belief in separation.
And recognizing that is what delivers us from playing the victim. When we choose judgment, we are, in effect, choosing the suffering that follows. I remember seeing a basketball player injure his ankle quite badly. The initial physical pain, that was pure trauma, clearly.
Of course.
But the immediate second wave of experience, that anger, the desperate why me feeling, the frustration with the perceived injustice of it all, that part is the judgment. The mind imposes its judgment on the order of the universe, basically claiming, this shouldn't be happening to me, I've been victimized. That mental condemnation of reality is the weeping the Course is asking us to stop. And this judgment system is incredibly efficient because it just creates layers upon layers of pain. The lesson goes on to define the consequences, stating, nor can I suffer pain or feel I am abandoned or unneeded in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about that connection between judgment and abandonment. It's crucial. We tend to assume feeling abandoned means someone else failed us, didn't meet our needs. But the Course suggests abandonment is simply the interpretive leap we make when we judge circumstances. We take the objective reality, maybe an unmet need, and we interpret that lack as a failure, either in ourselves or in others. We conclude, I must not matter because the world didn't give me what I wanted.
And the world itself is inherently neutral until we, as the perceiver, apply that judgment. Think about being stuck in really bad traffic. Objectively, it's just stationary vehicles.
Right.
That's it.
Just cars.
But the suffering, that tightness in your chest, maybe the rage bubbling up, that only comes when we apply the judgment. This is terrible. This is a massive waste of my time. The universe has wronged me. The feeling of being abandoned by your schedule or your goals only sticks around as long as that judgment is active.
And if you manage to withhold that judgment, the mind just settles. The traffic becomes merely traffic, an unavoidable circumstance, maybe. This is the path toward understanding this is my home because I judge it not. Home, in this sense, means a space of inherent safety, of peace.
Yes.
Judgment, by its very nature, makes any space feel unsafe because it assigns guilt and threat to neutral things. It turns the whole world into a place that feels like an imposition, a constant struggle.
It is important, though, that we pause here. Because applying non-judgment to, say, a traffic jam is one thing. It's vastly different when we try to apply it to issues of genuine, overwhelming human suffering.
That's a critical point.
When we look at the world's profound injustices, extreme poverty, war, huge human rights violations, just saying stop judging, can sound, frankly, callous, as if we're asking someone suffering immensely to just deny the painful physical and social reality of their situation.
We absolutely have to confront that challenge directly. When life is reduced to just a struggle for survival, these principles about perception can feel very abstract, almost irrelevant. The lesson isn't asking for denial of the physical fact of, say, destruction or hunger.
No.
It's identifying that the deepest suffering, the metaphysical kind, the weeping, arises from the mind's response to the idea of separation. The suffering comes from believing the tragic appearance of the world is its final reality.
The Course teaches that the ego uses these external forms of pain, starvation, loss, terror, to reinforce its central belief that we are alone, separate from our source, and therefore vulnerable to attack. The physical forms look very different, of course, but the underlying belief in separation is the same root. The weeping is essentially proof to the ego that we've successfully detached from God and are now lost.
And if we believe we're adrift, naturally we feel abandoned. This is where the Holy Spirit's presence becomes so critical. Not as a way to avoid the pain, but as companionship within the experience of pain. The Course offers a really profound mechanism here. The Holy Spirit translates every fearful thought, every angry thought, not as an indictment, but as a request for help, as a call for love.
That translation is the key practical mechanism. Our mind sends out a fearful message, maybe I hate this injustice. The Holy Spirit intercepts that and recognizes the underlying need. I am desperately afraid and need connection and relief. This is how love manages to show up even in conditions that look like absolute despair.
How does that look practically?
It might appear as just a small impulse, maybe to comfort a neighbor.
Yeah.
Or perhaps the strength to ask for help when rage feels like it's going to overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
Or even simply the ability to withstand the immediate terror without acting on the impulse to attack back. These small internal moments are the evidence that love is still alive, still available for that translation process.
So forgiveness then becomes this internal act of translation. It's the dawning awareness that hatred cannot possibly heal the world or heal the self. When we stop condemning the world or ourselves as being beyond redemption, a kind of quiet mental space opens up.
Mm-hmm.
Love, being the only underlying reality, then naturally moves into that open space. This mental shift, it doesn't magically erase the tragedy outside the window, perhaps, but it restores the clarity needed for practical, effective guidance to come through.
Think about the spiritual act of remembering. Even in conditions of absolute starvation and loss, the Course suggests peace is possible. Now, this peace arises not from magically finding food, but from a fundamental shift in identity. If a person facing extreme hunger chooses, say, to share a tiny piece of bread with a neighbor who is even worse off, that action goes beyond near survival instinct. Spiritually, that's an act of recognizing the other person as part of the same self. The individual has, for a moment, placed the unity of the self above the body's demands. And that clarity, that decision for connection, it restores immediate peace of mind, even if the external circumstances haven't changed yet.
That peace feels profound because it challenges the ego's whole structure. Similarly, when someone is consumed by grief or maybe deep, justifiable rage, the Course doesn't demand the feeling just disappear instantly. It invites awareness.
Awareness is key.
When you can simply notice that the mind is the agent that's holding and generating the pain, a tiny shift happens. It might feel small, but it's irreversible. You might still weep, yes, but a part of you now remembers that your essential nature is actually unchanged, unmoved by the world's chaos.
This is admittedly a challenging concept for those experiencing intense, prolonged suffering. The Course suggests we share the same mind, even if our physical circumstances look vastly different. The Holy Spirit meets everyone exactly where they are.
So we can join.
Yes, we can join with others in prayer, holding the unwavering truth that love has not abandoned them, despite all appearances. This shared willingness, this kind of spiritual joining, is where the healing process truly begins for all of us, no matter what the apparent form of the suffering looks like.
And this is how we begin to shift from seeing the world as a constant threat to viewing it maybe as a sanctuary. We wept because we perpetually misinterpreted neutral evidence. We stamped every experience with the ego's condemnation and believed we were constantly being hurt or attacked by forces outside ourselves.
So the lesson's invitation, let me see your world instead of mine, is really a cognitive restructuring project. Our world is the one we build by assigning guilt, lack, scarcity to everything we perceive. God's world is simply the world that stands utterly uncondemned. It's a place where every circumstance is just an opportunity to extend love, or at the very least, to withhold self-recrimination and judgment.
And the mechanism for making that shift is described beautifully, simply, though it definitely requires discipline. It happens through happy eyes, forgiveness has released from all distortion. Forgiveness here is defined as that active mental release from the compulsion to distort reality with the judgment of separation. It's what allows our vision to clear up.
If we manage to release this distortion, what's left is the reality that was always there underneath. The lesson calls this only what you will, and that is the definition of perfection. If the world is only what God wills, it must be perfect in its necessary function.
Okay, so if the world is perfect in its necessity, where does that leave us? This directly answers that second part of the opening line, doesn't it? That feeling of being unneeded in the world.
How so?
Well, if I judge the world, I'm essentially separating myself from it in my mind. If I perceive myself as separate, then I must feel unneeded because I've mentally removed myself from the whole picture. By ceasing judgment, we start to see the world as perfect. And in that perfect context, we realize we are inherently a perfect, necessary part of it.
So our sense of need or lack of value, it's entirely a perception problem. It's never actually a value problem. The value of the self is a given. It's just a feature of creation itself. When I look out at my daily surroundings, maybe the mundane noise outside, the construction, the constant change, and I intentionally withhold judgment,
What happens?
the simple flow of life just remains. My being there doesn't feel like an imposition anymore or like some desperate struggle to achieve significance outside myself. It simply is.
And that quiet acceptance, that kind of internal peace, that is the actual experience of God's world being happy. It's not some superficial happiness of forced positivity. It's the deep, unshakable peace that comes from genuinely making the decision, I will not judge your world today. When the mind stops its internal attack mechanism, the feeling of being attacked externally just dissolves.
Which brings us right back to the core promise of Lesson 301. And God himself shall wipe away all tears. This isn't positioned as some distant future event that depends on us achieving certain things. It happens the very moment we choose to withhold judgment.
Instantly.
Instantly. We remove the condemnation and the effect, the tears, the suffering. It naturally and immediately disappears.
So that consequence, that immediate relief, that's what allows us to, as the lesson says, forget all the tears because their source is gone. It's a transformation in cause and effect. It's an automatic divine consequence of choosing right perception. We often focus so much on managing the visible effects, the tears, the anger, the sense of loss.
Yes, we try to manage symptoms.
But the Course directs us relentlessly to the invisible cause in the mind. When we finally address the cause, the effects just dissolve.
The real work, then, is catching the judgment at the earliest possible stage, right at the point of perception, ideally before that emotional cascade of tear shedding even begins. This means practicing the lesson before the trigger happens. It's like preemptive forgiveness. It's an agreement you make with yourself. I will not distort reality today.
This lesson truly empowers us, doesn't it? By giving us profound accountability. Our pain, our weeping, is actually proof of our choice for judgment. But the incredible relief it offers is that the correction is always immediately available. The tears are entirely optional.
That really is the ultimate takeaway of Lesson 301, that the peace of God is immediate, available right now, upon our choice to simply stop condemning the reality He created.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration of Lesson 301. We really encourage you to keep this conversation alive, both in your own practice and by reaching out to us if you feel moved to.
You can email us anytime at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org. And you can find us and follow along on TikTok at The World Harmony Project.
Until tomorrow for Lesson 302, perhaps let this be our thought for reflection. Our pain is the chosen evidence of our judgment. Let us choose connection, clarity, and peace instead.